Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Chris Lee. Commodore fans, on your feet. It's time to anchor down.
Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast, presented by Dr. Jody Jones, DDS, part of the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Luke Wyatt. We'll talk Vanderbilt baseball. Luke appears on the guest line that's presented by Michael Kendrick of the Kendrick Group. Michael's a local carpenter and a lifelong Vandy fan. He builds bookshelves, cabinets, picture frames, furniture, and made-to-order items, including a display case for my prized Dale Murphy jersey. I've seen Michael's work. He's a true craftsman. If you're in the market for custom woodwork, give Michael a call. That number, 615-830-9458. Now on to our show with Luke Wyatt. Luke Wyatt joins us today. It is Monday. Vanderbilt has swept Mississippi State in a baseball series in pretty astonishing fashion. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, thank you for joining us today. I think you're on the road in Atlanta, and appreciate you being with us today.
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, it was a unexpected weekend. Not that we won games, but the fact the way we won them. Mississippi State's got some real issues in pitching. I think their starters have some potential, but their bullpen was awful. I saw some kids throwing there, and I'm not going to name names, but that I saw some better pitching in going to see my nephew play in high school. So there you have that. And I don't know how Mississippi State has gotten in that shape in a 2-year period. It's kind of scary. But that's where they're at, and then giving credit to our kids, we are swinging the bats, man. We started it last week against Ole Miss, who they're also 0-6. I get that, but they're not in near the shape Mississippi State's in. Mississippi State fielding also was very poor. Their shortstop struggled all weekend. There's just a myriad of things that they've got to work on. But from the Vanderbilt standpoint, what a great weekend.
Yeah, I had a busy and crazy weekend in many respects, and I was listening to the broadcasts on the way to see my parents on Sunday afternoon. I heard Andrew Allegretti talk about how the margin of victory in the Thursday game, or the Friday game, was the highest in the history of Tim Corbin's tenure at Vanderbilt. I'm guessing other records were broken for runs scored and run margin in SEC play, but I haven't checked it. I don't know if anybody has. I don't know if you happen to hear that or not, but it would be hard for me to imagine a more lopsided sweep in the history of Vanderbilt baseball than the one that happened this weekend.
No, I don't think so. And I think back even to the years in the 70s when Larry Smitto had some really good teams and we pounded a few teams. That was back in the wooden bat era, and the games you just didn't score that many runs in games, no matter how poor the pitcher was with wooden bat. And I don't think there's anything close to it, to be honest with you. I guess of 55 runs, is that what we scored? Something like that.
Yeah. 55 to 15.
Yeah.
Winning an SEC series by 40 runs, and you don't even play 2 innings.
Yeah. Crazy. And our pitching was good. And Mississippi State still has some bats. I think they had 6 guys in their lineup hitting 300. So that's not their issue. They can score runs against people. But defensively, it's like, my goodness, Chris. And I don't know how much of the games you actually saw or just listened to on the radio, but I watched every pitch of every inning. And even pop-ups and fly balls sometimes were an adventure. And I don't know whether it's just been they've missed on every recruit or what. I don't know. And maybe they'll get out of the funk, but there's something not right with that team, period, besides the talent falling off a cliff. There's something not right with that squad, and you could tell it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I thought that sometimes when you win a game by that much, there's a sort of a come to Jesus thing in that other dugout.
Right.
And it didn't happen for Saturday. And I thought, well, Sunday, okay, they're saving their best pitcher to start Sunday. And Futrell is throwing for Vanderbilt. He's a pronounced fly ball pitcher. I'm not saying the wind was blowing out or whatever, but I mean, it seemed like balls, I guess, with the weather, were getting out of there pretty easily. And I just told my wife, we're listening on the radio, we're going to see my parents the first few innings. I said, I could see this one getting sideways for them today. They're throwing a good pitcher. It's the best they've got. Everything's gone wrong against them. Vanderbilt's throwing a guy that's very fly ball prone against a good lineup on a weekend where the ball is getting out of there pretty quickly. I said I could just see them dominating the series but still losing one. And even with that, they won that game.
Right, and even with a poor outing by Bryce Cunningham, he came in and couldn't throw strikes, and when he did, it was fastballs right down the middle, and they took advantage of them. So, that was really the only pitcher that struggled. Devin wasn't great, but he did enough to keep us in the game with us having the lead we had, and then Maldonado was himself as always. But I'm telling you, Chris, and I know we got Georgia coming up, and they're 1-5, but they scored 24 runs themselves in their series finale, Auburn. So, there's a lot of teams hitting the ball, and, you and I have talked about this, about bats, is it balls, is it this, is the ball juiced? Part of it is conditions. Like I said, Saturday, and I don't want to take anything away from some of our home ones. I think Parker hit one that was a no-doubter, would have been out it didn't matter. And then Diaz hit a couple that were no-doubters. But there were a few that the wind aided big time for them and us. And I think that's part of it, maybe, some windy conditions. But, my goodness, 26 runs, 18 runs, and 11 runs in an SEC series. I mean, you can underhand.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you can underhand the ball to someone and not give up that many runs.
I'm looking at the stat sheet in conference-only play for all the teams, and they've scored 82 runs. Next is LSU at 56. And again, and I get that there's some other teams in here that didn't bat in their halves of the ninth inning at home because they're leading. Maybe there's a run rule game or two, but that's 82 runs without getting to bat in 5 innings of 6 games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you talk about being spoiled. If we win a game 4-3, we're going to think we're horrible. I mean, it really, we have barreled, and I do my barrel thing. Well, listen to this on the first game.
Are you able to count that high? That's the question. I know you're smart, but everybody has their limits.
Listen, it's funny. I do it with flashes on a piece of paper, or I do it in flashes on my phone. I was doing it on a piece of paper when I was sitting at home Friday night, and I got up to 31 barrels. We had 20 hits, but 31 barrels. That's crazy. It's a crazy number. And everybody over the weekend, I don't think anybody had a bad weekend. Everybody at least had one good game of the 3. And of course, Parker Nolan, they had to take him kicking and screaming out of Starkville. He doubled his stats or more for the weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed Parker Nolan if he missed the team bus to go back home.
No, absolutely not. I mean, my goodness. But I did. I do want to say this. To be fair, there were some wind-aided home runs, but it didn't matter about the home runs. We were hitting bullets all over the place, gap to gap. Enrique looks like he's coming out of it completely. He was very, and we weren't swinging at those bad breaking balls and being off stride and lunging and all that. That wasn't happening. Now the Friday night pitching for them, like I said, I think it was Friday. Their bullpen, those guys that came in now, they were all freshman kids. But my goodness, Chris, they weren't topping 84 with a fastball. They couldn't have been.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain what's happened to Mississippi State, but that's another topic for somebody else's podcast.
It is.
And I'm looking at the stat sheet. This is SEC only stats. Vanderbilt leads the league in batting average, 366. Next is LSU, 312. Runs, as I said, Vanderbilt is 82. LSU is 56, second place. At bats, Vanderbilt's had 224 at bats, second place, LSU 215. Hits, 82, second place, LSU 67. Doubles, Vanderbilt actually is in third in doubles. They better get it together. Missouri has 16. Georgia has 14, Vanderbilt third with 13. Of course, hard to double when you hit the ball out of the park. Vanderbilt actually doesn't have a triple yet. That's a little bit of an upset. 19 home runs ahead of South Carolina and Florida, which are tied with 16. RBIs, which are kind of meaningless, but maybe, sometimes you can't get an RBI if there's an error on there. 77 of their 82 runs haven't had an RBI attached. Total bases, 152. That leads the league over South Carolina at 113. Again, all conference play. Walks, let's see. LSU is tied with 37 for first with Vanderbilt. Hit batsmen, they've been hit 7 times. Actually, that's kind of low for the league. There's been several teams that have been hit by more pitches. Strikeouts, they are, and sorry to just read off a stat sheet, but it just is amazing how they're doing everything well. Right. There are, Mississippi State has only struck out 40 times. That's less than Vanderbilt has. That's it. Vanderbilt hit into 1 double play, which is kind of remarkable given how many base runners they've had. On base percentage, number 1, 465. Steals, actually, Kentucky stole an 18. Vanderbilt stole 9. A&M stole 10. But anyway, they are basically doing everything well offensively in conference play. If you want to pick a bone with it, I don't know where you start.
No, there's nothing you can say. I mean, it's almost been perfect baseball offensively and defensively as well. We haven't made an error in the 6 games, I don't think. If we did,
and here's a place I was going to go with that. They have not made an error. They have turned 9 double plays in the league, which leads the conference. Their defense has just locked it down.
And Chris, slugging percentage. Now this is for the entire year. When we started the SEC of the 6 games back, I think we only had 1 guy slugging over 500. We now have 6 guys slugging 500 or more. So that's how much damage we've done in 6 games.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. Now, each week it's going to get tougher. Like I said, Georgia put up 24 in their last game, even though they won 1 game. But, as long as we keep doing what we're doing and the approach that we have, we talked about this, Chris, if you remember on the podcast. I know you do so many. It's tough for you to remember some, but we talked about this, you and I, about the approach at the plate was not good in a lot of games, like that 17-inning game we had with Evansville, how just a lot of, poor decisions, taking a lot of fastballs down the middle. Well, we're chasing fastballs now. We're hunting them, and when they throw one, we attack it. Diaz, Polk, R.J. Austin, when you throw them a fastball, it's going somewhere hard. It may not be a hit, but it's going to be barreled. And I think that's just an approach thing that either Mike Baxter has decided to get this done, or with Corbs, but it's a total different approach than what they had in the first 15 or 20 games.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the same team. I mean, like I said 2 weeks ago, it just seemed like they were leading the universe in soft ground balls to the infield. And I mean, I've never seen a team change its hitting approach and turn it around in the blink of an eye like this one has done.
No, and I think the only thing you can attribute to the only it's not a negative, but the only thing that you can attribute this to besides them doing it is some poor pitching. Now, I don't know statistically where Ole Miss is. You probably have that in front of you, but I know Mississippi State's got to be over 10 as an ERA. They have to be.
It's 14.98. They have State's pitching has actually been worse than Vanderbilt's offense has been good in league play, and I mean, right. Of course, half that's fueled by Vanderbilt, but State's given up 90 runs in 48 2/3 innings. 81 of those are earned.
I remember last year because they've lost now 17 straight league
17.
games? Okay, last year they ended with 11 straight losses. Didn't Tennessee beat them similar to what we did? At the end of the year last year. So this is something that's an ongoing thing from carryover from a year. So, you still have to give someone credit. Like I said, I don't care if they're underhanding the ball. If you stand at the plate and swing and to get 26 runs home, then 18, then 11, that's incredible.
Yeah, it just is a weird situation. Of course, that fan base wants the coach gone 2 years after winning a national title, which in a way, it's hard to blame them.
Oh, listen, they have gone from the outhouse to the penthouse. I mean, the penthouse to the outhouse in a heartbeat. It just shows you, if you don't stay, what could happen.
I've got some weird pitching stuff I want to throw at you in a minute, but I mean, I think it seems to me like you said their swings have been more aggressive. I feel like you've got some guys like Vastine and Austin in particular who take some really hard hacks at it, and sometimes they'll come up missing, but I feel like the trade-off to when those guys are making contact is more than worth it. And really, it just feels like that's the approach for a lot of the lineup. And I recall back here last year to another team that did this. When SEC play started, they just flipped the switch, and it was Texas A&M. And you're just watching them going, that lineup is a nightmare to pitch to because you don't get an easy strike against them. They'll foul balls off. They sit fastball, and my goodness, they will swing and miss some, but they will also absolutely hammer it when it's there to be hit. And it just feels like we're watching the same offense we saw with the Aggies a year ago.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. You know, it also kind of started for us, I felt like, when Bolger started hitting.
Yeah.
Jack
he had a great weekend.
He did. And again, he was one of those that got robbed 2 or 3 times where I did a slash for a barrel that he hit. And, gosh, Chris, we could have actually had legitimately 70 hits in those 3 games. Think about that. That's just unheard of. But anyway, coming up with, the Georgia series, this can't continue. It's unrealistic to expect them to do this. But if they just do half of what they're doing, if you average 7 runs a game with their pitching, they should be able to win 2 out of 3 most weekends against any of the teams in the SEC, any of them. And I've seen everybody. I watched so much baseball, my eyes were bleeding this weekend. I've seen just about everybody's pitching staff. I watched the LSU Arkansas game. They played really early the other day because of weather. And, Christian Little was supposed to be their closer, and Christian got racked. They have a few issues too. Now they've got some great arms, but they've also got a few issues in their bullpen. So I think everybody in this league is vulnerable. And we still got Leboke looked great again the other day. Cunningham was the only person who struggled a little bit. It's just so many positives right now. You don't know what to stop. The defense. I mean, good grief. 0 errors, and the play the double play that ended one of the games, maybe in the second game, was incredible.
The other guy that's standing out, and again, it's just so weird because he couldn't make contact hard enough to put it through a sheet of paper the last 2 months last year. And part of this season to begin, Davis Diaz is hitting the ever-living tar out of the ball. He had 2 home runs Sunday. He had that one. He probably had the hardest hit ball of the whole weekend on that one that was foul on Friday. And I don't know that was foul or just was hit so hard and so high over the foul pole. Watching the replay, it felt kind of like we don't know. We couldn't tell. We'll go with the call on the field, and for all we know, it was a home run. But that guy, and again, and I said this when they were not doing well. Let's not forget that they got some guys that have had some ability to flash some things before, and so you just never know. No, look, not in a million years would I've outlined it to play out the way it has, but Davis Diaz was a very, very talented player coming out of high school, and my goodness, it is now showing.
It is. And sometimes it takes a while for it to all come together. When you get a hitting coach who wants you to do some things that are out of the ordinary or out of your comfort zone, sometimes it's human nature just to fight that. But then once you realize, hey, okay, there's a reason for this, and it could be this too, Chris. And this is just a straight up opinion. I don't have any knowledge of anything. It could have been Corb sat down with Bax and said, look, what we're doing is not going to work. We got to change our approach completely starting blank. And that may be as simple as that. Let these kids, in other words, take the reins off these kids and let them go.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. Whatever it was, figure it out and do it again and again. The other guy that's really been a game changer for them, you talk about Bolger. It seems like about the time they put Chris Maldonado in the lineup is when it changed also.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And that would probably not have happened if Parker had a couple of rough defensive games early in the year.
Dropped a pop-up, didn't he?
Yeah, in foul territory, and there was 3 other errors. He dropped one on a pickoff play to first. It was right in his glove, just went over the tip of his glove. But I think Corbs was sending a message to Parker and played Chris at first that day. And then that day is when Chris, I think, went 3 for 4. So, you're exactly right. That and then the coming around of Jack Bolger. Because, we were teetering on, okay, do we go with the better defensive catcher in Espinal, who can't hit breaking balls much, or do we go with Jack? And then finally, Jack's had so many at-bats, and he does the best job of anybody on the team as far as his eye at the plate. I think he's walked more than anybody on the team, or struck out less than anybody on the team. Maybe I should say that. He's putting the ball in play, and he's putting it with hard contact now.
Bolger has struck out 13 times, been hit 3 times. I'm sorry, has walked 13 times, been hit 3 times, and struck out 5 times. So basically, he's getting on base by free passes at over a 3-to-1 rate, which is unbelievable.
That is. So that's huge. I mean, when you have a guy like Bastine hitting 9th in your order and Polk hitting 8th.
I'll tell you, Vastine has looked like the best hitter on the team in small bursts.
And I think he'll have spots because he swings so hard. I think his swing path and the way he swings so hard. When, like you said, when he makes contact, it's going somewhere in a hurry, over 100 miles per hour, leaving his bat. And, he's going to go, I think he's going to strike out. He's going to be a high strikeout guy. We don't have many of those on this team, knock on wood. We're still at that point that I keep talking about, only 7 strikeouts a game. That's where we're at, like 7.2. And we're striking out opponents at almost 12. If those stats stay where they are for the remaining 8 series in the season, we're going to be up around that 45 win mark.
Yeah. And guess who's over 400 on his on-base percentage now?
Who's that?
Bradfield.
Yeah, there you go. And we've talked. We both agree with this. He's the engine, and if when he gets going, it takes so much attention away from the hitter because they throw over to first 5 and 6 times, and most of the time, even though he's been caught early in the year, he's going to steal second on most catchers.
Yeah. I don't feel like there's a guy in the lineup that I would love to pitch to right now. I feel like the most logical candidate, and I hate to pick on him, you have to pick somebody, is Parker Nolan. And the kid had an 11 RBI game with 2 grand slams on Friday.
Yeah, like I said, it's crazy. And I think, he had 2 strikeouts, I think, in one game. That's the only flaw of his weekend. He had an incredible weekend. And he made some great plays at first as well. Vastine, I was listening to I don't know if they're the guy, you might know who called the game on ESPN Plus. Are those Mississippi State folks that called the game?
I believe they are, yeah.
They weren't bad homers. I don't mean that.
No, they were good. They were good.
They were good, I thought. I thought they were very good. And they were really loving on Vastine and his defense.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, their defense locked it down. And look, remember how bad Diaz started the season defensively? I don't think fielding percentage is everything, but he's .930 now. I think he was down in the 700s for a while when he was at short, or maybe low 800s. And look, I kind of watch fielding percentages by position over the years. If you start fielding north of about .930, you're generally a pretty good third baseman, and I know he's been fielding that at third. I mean, at least by college standards, and I feel like all his errors have come at short, but that could be wrong.
No, you're right. No, you're correct about that. I think of his errors, and I don't know how many he has. It's not in front of me. I think he made 1 at third.
He's got 5.
And that. Okay, so 4 of them I know came at shortstop. So the fifth one, it may have been, so I think he made one. I think I remember a midweek game when he was switched to third and he made a boot over there where he made the stop but then bobbled the ball and couldn't throw anyone out. But now you want him to hit the ball to him. You're begging him to hit it to him. His reactions at third, and I said this when they made the switch, I liked it because I didn't know it was going to work out this good, but I liked it because I think his hands are really good, but his range is not as good as Vastine. So it works out better for him playing third.
They've turned 24 double plays this year too, and I mean maybe there's a little bit of good fortune involved in there. I mean, you got to get a ground ball hit to the right guy at the right time, and sometimes the difference between a double play and one getting through to score two is a matter of about 2 inches. But their turns and their execution there just seems to have been flawless lately.
Well, the R.J. Austin kid, gotta love him. I see what Corbin talks about when he says he's an old 1970s type ball player. He is. He's just a grinder. He's going to do everything he can. There was a pop up, and this was the announcers that brought this to the attention. There was a pop up that was probably 3 to 5 rows back, and the way Mississippi State Duty Noble is shaped, there's a big gap over there by the bullpen. He and Shrek, I'm talking Austin, and Nolan were all right there, and all three of them could have made the play because they were all hustling. So that's another thing. Now, I know it's easy to hustle when you're winning 26-3 and 18-5, but that was impressive to me.
Well, think about this. Their infield next year could be just for giggles here. Let's put Maldonado at first. They could have Austin at second, Vastine at short, and Diaz at third. And you know what? I've seen some good Vanderbilt infields. That might be as good as any of them. This season of the Vandy Sports Podcast has been made possible by my friend Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. When it comes to general or cosmetic dentistry services, Jody is the best in Nashville. Just check out his client list. It testifies to that. He sees movie stars, music stars, athletes, coaches, you name it. Jody is the dentist of choice for stars in Nashville, but he sees regular folks like you and I as well. What people love about Jody's office is the ambiance. It's relaxing, it's friendly. Someone described it to me as a tooth spa. Whether your needs are general or cosmetic, go see Jody today. Call him 615-270-2322. See him at 55 Music Square East, not far from downtown or the Vanderbilt campus. Jody is a former Vanderbilt football player and a huge Commodore booster, so go and talk Vandy sports with him while you're there. Go see Jody Jones today. Thank him for his support of this podcast, because without it, this season would not be possible.
I agree. I agree with that. There's a lot of those guys have the tools for that. And, and we talked about it. Our recruiting's been so good, at some point, given enough at bats and you get the patience with these kids, they're going to pan out. They just, most of the time.
Yeah, and then that was the thing when it was going so badly. You just kind of thought about it, and you're like, they're not stupid. Their staff works as hard as anybody in the country. These kids were pretty highly touted players. Like, if some point, if it's nothing other than utter stupid, dumb luck, they're bound to get better. Now, again, I didn't see this coming, but that always had to be on your radar of possibility.
Sure. And like I said earlier, you can't be lucky and score as many runs as we scored. There's got to be a lot to that. Now, obviously, your opponent has something to do with that, but you still got to hit the ball, and you got to hit the ball in the barrel. And we have seen in the past, like we talk about, Vanderbilt's kryptonite has always been those slow tossing lefties or righties. Anybody that throws the ball, throws slop, so to speak. And that wasn't the case because Mississippi State had a few of those this weekend, and we hammered those guys too. So I think it's approach. I really do. And it's across the board. It isn't just one or two guys.
All right, let's talk pitching for a minute. And there's a couple of weird things on the stat sheet here too. Which staff has got the fewest strikeouts in the league? In league play.
Tennessee.
Vanderbilt, 41.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the other way. Okay.
No,
41.
next lowest team is A&M at 48. Vanderbilt has also walked the fewest people. It's walked 14. It is hit 2 batters. That's the lowest total in the league. Again, the soft contact or Enrique Bradfield has run down about 1,000 balls in the outfield in SEC play too. So defense is a lot of it, but it is weird to look at the stat sheet. Now, Mississippi State is a team that doesn't strike out a lot. State struck out the fewest times offensively in league play. That's been a trend for at least 2 or 3 years now. That's just how State does offense, and so that's a tough lineup to strike out. But it's weird. You're looking down, and they're number one in they're the lowest team in terms of strikeouts. They're the best team in terms of control, and 6 home runs. There are a few teams that have allowed fewer. They haven't allowed a triple yet. And 7 doubles is also one of the lowest marks in the league. So teams just aren't really squaring it up very well against them. And when they are, Enrique Bradfield seems to have been there to run it down.
Or they're making plays. Yeah, but what are we in ERA? Second? LSU maybe?
Yes, behind South Carolina, 323, Vandy 335.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be interested to see when we play South Carolina. That's the one team I've only seen play one like 3 innings, so I don't know a lot about them yet. But they're obviously playing very well.
Yeah, I think they're really good. They're crushing the ball. Now, some of that's been against an easy schedule, but they had a lot of pitching talent coming into this year, according to the people who paid attention, and I would say that is coming to fruition the way it was predicted.
So, Chris, if we go, let's see, we're sitting at 19-5, correct? We have 30 games left.
Yeah.
16-14 would put this team at 35-19. That's
it's something like that. I mean, they got some other midway. Here's the way I look at it. There's 6-0 in the league. You got 24 league games left. You split those, you go 12-12. I think that team's a national seed. It's certainly hosting. But you throw in that UCLA series win, I think that is probably a national seed.
So
if you just go 500 the rest, and oh, by the way, they're going to be favored to win at least 2 against Georgia this weekend. Now, that one's been a tough matchup for them in years past. I remember that series here 2 years ago where Georgia just hit the daylights out of the ball, everybody up and down the lineup. And so sometimes stuff sneaks up on you. It did at the time, but just going to throw that out there.
No, you're right. And baseball is baseball, so you're going to have bad nights. And, for instance, like tomorrow night against Lipscomb, will we continue scoring in double-digit runs? I don't know. Will Corbs give some other guys some at-bats tomorrow night, or does he not want to mess with what he's doing lineup-wise? Will you see a T.J. McKenzie or a Calvin Hewitt get a start? I don't know. Espinal probably will start at catcher, I would think. I don't know. But, we've got some pitchers that need some work, too. That's one thing I wanted to bring up. I think Bryce's problems would be because he hadn't pitched in a while. We haven't had to use our bullpen much, and some of those guys need work. And you can do so much in the bullpen. But, Ryan Ginther came in, only got to pitch to 2 batters. We haven't seen the Thompson kid since that 17-inning game. We haven't seen Horn, but I think that was probably an injury.
Dukanich
has been injured. I think he's still another week away, maybe. I think Horn's probably close to being ready. I was happy for Jack Anderson to get in and actually be effective the other night. I know he had to feel bad about his poor outing. So good for Jack.
I think they've got a national title caliber team. Now, I think LSU's the best team in this league right now. We'll see how that turns out. You mentioned they've got some hiccups with pitching that Vanderbilt doesn't have. Yeah, the bullpen, Vanderbilt's is better. But now, look, the lineup, I know Vanderbilt scored more runs than everybody right now in SEC play. Now, if you switch that to all games, that's LSU, which has also played an easier schedule on the whole. But look, as much as I like Vanderbilt's lineup right now, there's no comparing that to LSU's.
No, they got the best player in the country, and they've got Trey Morgan.
Which one? I mean, it's one of two guys. Well, actually, I tell you, the guy from Florida might pull the hold my beer here because he's a two-way guy. But anyway.
Right, yeah. I watched the entire Florida Ole Miss game yesterday on replay, and Florida looked very impressive too. I know it was at Ole Miss when they swept Ole Miss there. They didn't pound the runs in like we did, but they looked really good. They had a kid come out of the bullpen, number 55. I don't know his name, but man, he was good. He was real good.
Are you ready for the mailbag? I think I lost him. I'll take that as a yes. The mailbag has been sponsored by our friends at Sutherland and Belk. As I scramble for the ad read, which you would think I would know by now because I've done this for how many years now? Here we go.
Called those gray hairs.
I think I've just gotten lazy. It's always in front of me, so I don't memorize it. Okay. Our good friends at Sutherland and Belk, now I can't even pronounce the name, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help, if they don't defriend us after that train wreck of a read. Anyway.
You'll be better. You'll be better next time.
It's, yeah. Running on fumes here. Okay. Momolo, after 2 weeks, what is your new prediction for Vanderbilt's final SEC record and your predicted order of finish for all teams in the SEC East?
Well, I'd said 17-13. Hopefully it's better than that since we're 6-0. I think 20-10 is very doable. I think the rest of the league, I won't go through all 13 other teams, but I think you've got the two Mississippis are going to be in the bottom four. I think Georgia may be. I think Kentucky's a lot better than we thought. And then everybody else, you can kind of throw a rope around. Everybody's good. I mean, on a given weekend, anybody can win 2 out of 3. And there's been an inordinate amount of sweeps to me. It seems like that is a lot.
Yes, there were 5 the first weekend. There were, 3 or 4 this weekend? It's been weird.
That's strange. You don't see that much. And teams getting swept at home. So, I think it's wide open. There are 3 or 4 teams who have really problems pitching, but I think every team can hit the ball. Just about. I don't know anybody that's not hitting it well now. We were the team before conference play started that you worried about hitting. I think everybody can hit it pretty good now.
Ole Miss is last in the league in runs scored in SEC games. Of course, they've faced Vanderbilt and Florida, but they've still averaged almost 6 runs a game. They've scored 24 over 6 games. I mean, 6 runs a game, most years you'll take that. Now, the offense, I got my issues. I think between the bats and the balls, it's more like pinball right now. In fact, I've never been unhappier with the state of the college game between the run-scoring environment, the portal, the NIL, and the stuff that's gone on with that and the tampering. I don't think I've ever less been a fan of the way the game is played with all that.
I'm going to say this, and I brought it up once before, and you kind of halfway agreed with me, but it's okay. We can agree to disagree. I think the clock has a whole lot to do with it. I think you got a lot of pitchers who are used to waiting longer than 20 seconds to throw a baseball in between pitches. And the fact that they know they got to get up, throw it is affecting some of that and their location. And I don't know if that's all of it, but I think that compounds it.
It can always be more than one thing. I know people have a really hard time with getting their heads around it being more than one thing. I think that's got to be part of it. I think I heard on the telecast, the Mississippi State guys were saying that umpires are being judged by, what is it, TrackMan or whatever. There's 2 of those programs that tell you where pitches are thrown, which, by the way, I've talked to the people that handle those at Vanderbilt at times, and they will tell you sometimes that what is plotted on the screen and what a pitch actually was are not the same thing. One of those is better than the other. I don't remember which it is. But In any case, apparently umpires' strike zones have shrunk because they're being evaluated based on what does the computer say you're doing in terms of balls and strikes. And so that, in theory, is made for a smaller strike zone.
Could be that, too. I haven't paid a lot of attention to that. I thought the umpiring in our games this weekend was pretty good. The outside corner was kind of liberal, but with the
if it hadn't been, we might still be watching baseball in Starkville.
Still be hitting, yeah. But besides that, I didn't have any issues with umpiring.
Okay, go Doors. I guess this is a question. We just dominated the last two College World Series champions, but are they really not very good?
Well, like I said, State can hit the ball, but the other two parts of the game, fielding and pitching, they are lagging behind. Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss is going to come around like they did last year. They weren't very good. I think they got swept early in the season by UT, and then they turn around and win the whole thing. So there's time I think they've got time to turn things around when they get there. I don't know if their pitcher that's so good is coming back or not, but I know he's really good. That'll help them. I don't think you can recover from 0-6, though, and get where you want to be.
Hunter Elliott is supposed to be back, but I don't know. Sometimes those supposed to that go a few weeks turn into something bigger. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that based on any information. It's just I've seen this before. This guy's going to be back, and then it's a couple more weeks and a couple more weeks, and then there's your season. So,
right.
Okay. Momolo, total stolen bases for Enrique Bradfield Jr. and number of times caught stealing.
All right, I'll give a good guess. I like that. Last year, what did he steal, Chris? You have that in front of you? 40-something?
Was it 49 or 49-ish?
Yeah, he wasn't
I'll pull it up.
He slid past the bag against Tennessee and was called out. So let's say he stole 49. I say he'll be in that same area, somewhere between 40 and 45. He's already got 17, and we've played 24 games.
So that's how many games to go? You got 18 in the league, and how many out of conference?
We got 30 games left.
And I think you could easily throw in another 7 or 8 conservatively on the postseason end. I think it's going to be a lot more than that, but we'll see.
We have 24. Yeah, I'm talking about the regular season. We have 24 conference games left. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And 6.
I'd go 1 a game as a rough guideline, which is about what he's done so far, and he's not even been.
No.
I've had the theory for a while that he just hasn't been completely well.
Right. So if he does that, you're looking at 47 stolen bases.
Yeah. Okay, what have we got next? Year in top 3 hitters. I'm sorry.
I said no questions about Woody Woodenhofer.
Well, we're not to football yet. I suggested keep baseball, but everybody, you still have people wanting. Well, no, I don't think I did it. I said we're going to hit baseball today, but people went in other directions with the questions too. I'm keeping them by sport all at once, so we don't have to change gears too much. Okay. Momolo, top year in 3 hitters and their final batting averages, same for home runs.
Final batting average. Well, I think Shrek will lead us in home runs. That's a no-brainer. Batting average, I'm going to say actually Vastine. I think he's going to have a streak where he gets that average up to about 325 to 350. And RBIs, I'll go with Shrek also.
Yeah, I think home runs was a question. Top 3 in home runs. Shrek would easily be on that list.
Shrek would be on that list. Diaz, and since Parker's got a little jump on everybody, I'll say Parker, because when he gets that swing going to left and left center, he can go on a tear in 4 or 5 in a week. So I'll say Parker. Nolan will be in that as well.
Okay, what have we got next? Let's see. Oh, 2 weeks. No, we did the predicted order, didn't we? Or the final SEC record? Did we do that one or not?
That was the first question.
Oh, you know what? There was part of the question I didn't get to. Predicted order of finish for all teams in the East.
Yeah, I kind of went at that as a bottom 4 being the 2 Mississippi schools, Georgia and A&M. And then I had everybody else kind of anybody could beat anybody. So it's hard to predict after.
Yeah.
We have a chance to win the thing, that's for sure. I don't know enough about South Carolina. Obviously, their record's great. I know Kentucky's better than we thought, or at least I thought. All 3 up there. I think Tennessee is not near as good as they were last year. Their pitching has not been as dominant, that's for sure. And their rolled bats hadn't worked. Sorry, Chris, but their rolled bats haven't been working quite as well. I think there's like 6 or 7 teams that could win it.
Yeah, I would go. I would go Vanderbilt, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee in that order. Although Missouri might break in there too ahead of Tennessee because Tennessee's schedule's brutal. I think Tennessee's good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They got out. What about LSU? You left them out.
Well, he said East.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he meant the entire conference. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's easy then. The East,
I left out Kentucky. Kentucky, which is number 1 in the RPI.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's 6 or 7 teams.
It's crazy good. Yeah.
It is. It's crazy good right now. Now, there'll be some separation as time moves on, obviously. But right now, you can't just point to one team and say they're going to win it for sure. There's not one dominant team.
Here's who the teams don't play. Florida does not play Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State. Georgia does not play Alabama, Mississippi State, or A&M. Kentucky does not play Arkansas, Auburn, Ole Miss. Missouri does not play Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State. Carolina does not play Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M. Tennessee does not play Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss. And Vanderbilt does not play Auburn, LSU, or A&M.
Yeah. Tennessee's we are totally different from Tennessee. I think our best chance of winning games in sweeping series are the first 4, and then after that it gets tough. Tennessee's just the opposite. They're first. They got LSU, Florida, and then us in the next 3 weekends.
It's at LSU, Florida, Knoxville, at Arkansas, Vandy, and Knoxville.
Okay,
then it's Mississippi State at Georgia, Kentucky at South. Those last 2 series aren't easy for them either. No, of course, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to go South Carolina at Tennessee, Kentucky at Alabama at Florida, Arkansas to end the year. So might be good to grab as many wins as you can get the next 2 weekends because you might need them later. Yeah,
put some money in the bank. Absolutely. That's why this weekend we can't rest on our laurels. We got to get 2 out of 3 at home against Georgia.
All right, basketball question. Of course, we have a basketball question. Looks like we've already lost 2 members of last year's freshman class to the portal and lost the entire class from the previous year. Is this a negative for the program or just the nature of college basketball under the new rules? Is Stack too old school in the way he treats freshmen in the new portal world?
I think a perfect scenario for basketball teams, not just Vanderbilt, is a couple of freshmen. When you start getting 3 and 4, because you're not going to be able to keep up because everybody – let's look at how old some of these teams are. Like UAB was, started 5 seniors. I think the portal, even for Vanderbilt, can work. If you get 2 portals and 2 freshmen every year is a perfect blend, in my opinion. It's just a different day, man. It's so different. And, I don't know whether the situation with Dia and Shelby has been, we don't want you back, or have they left on their own? I don't know that. I might try to work on that when I get back in town, try to figure that out. I don't know. Jerry had talked about how good Dia was as an athlete. But I always said he's just so raw, he can't help because he's not really doing anything. He just hunts his shot was all he was doing, really. So, I don't want to be negative on those kids. They're freshmen and whatever. And we obviously thought they were good enough or wouldn't recruited them. But I do think, to go back to the question, a couple of freshmen and a couple of transfers is the way to go for most teams.
Okay, VA 72, and this is the last one, all things considered. What do you think is the current trajectory of the football program and why?
Well, I made myself clear on this. I feel like we should be a bowl team this year. I think we should be playing Tennessee with 6 wins in our pocket. Reason I say that is because the least we should do in non-conference is 3-1. I know Clark will kick me in the butt for saying all this, but that's okay. It's like put a little pressure on him. And I think we should win 3 conference games. So that's 6 before you play Tennessee is what I'm saying.
All right,
then,
we're done. Okay, sorry.
Unless you get a ton of injuries. I'm sorry. I always preface that with unless you get a ton of injuries, stuff out of your control.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. The stomach is growling, okay. And when the kitchen calls, the attention span gets short.
Chris, I've enjoyed it.
Likewise. Hey, Luke, thanks for coming on, and we'll grab you again, I guess, next Monday.
All right, talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We thank our presenting sponsor, Jody Jones DDS. We thank our other sponsors, Sutherland and Belk and MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, and that's how we make this work, please email me at chrisley70@gmail.com. We also ask that you subscribe to our website, vandysports.com. That is $99 a year. You get things there that you don't get here. And of course, please rate, review, and subscribe where you see our podcast. That helps us get noticed. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at vandysports.com. Follow me at chrisley70. And finally, subscribe to our Vandy Sports YouTube channel as well. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast, which is part of the 440 Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. We'll catch you with another episode coming very soon.